ahead, Jerry.
Disintegration time.
Yep.
Can you describe what that is?
Great question. Really, you're not gonna know that. It's put through a chemical test in a laboratory to understand how long it takes to disintegrate the powder, the capsule, the tablet. So unless you're holding it in your mouth for an extended period of time, which you are not, the product is not designed to do that, you're not gonna know. So this is really something that I don't know how often it would be a complaint. Does that answer your question, Jerry?
Yeah, I just hadn't heard that before.
Can I speak to this also, because I was at Dr. Vida and they showed me the disintegration test. This is a test the manufacturer does to make sure that there's a certain amount of time within which it disintegrates in your stomach. If you take a capsule, I think it's within 30 minutes, it disintegrates so that the contents can actually really work in your stomach and get absorbed by stomach acids and, so there's, otherwise, if it doesn't disintegrate within 30 minutes, then you're actually passing out that capsule as a solid. So again, not something that would be transparent to our customers, but something that we require that our contract manufacturers actually test and make sure that the disintegration time is within what it's required to be.
Specification, yeah. Yeah, disintegration time is one of the product specifications on our finished product specs. So, yeah, unless you're hitting your stopwatch as soon as you take up a 5-leaf capsule, and then you go, all right, well, I feel it 32 minutes later, then highly unlikely that you're going to know it. Same thing with the very last one. Contamination, you're not going to know right away. Bacteria, pesticide, mycotoxin, glass. Yeah, if there's glass pieces in it, you're probably going to know it. If it's a capsule, maybe not. So some of these things are probable, some of them are more probable than others. Communicating complaints, extremely important here. Each product complaint will be adequately documented and monitored to ensure product safety and customer satisfaction. We have essentially going to fight on two fronts here. Number one, customer satisfaction, and also customer safety. We have to, I'm not part of the customer service team, but somebody calls and complains, it's our opportunity to really turn that upset, frustrated customer into a extremely loyal customer, big believer. I've heard the saying, if you have a bad experience, you'll probably tell as many people about it as you can. If you have a good experience somewhere, you're not as likely to spread the word. So when people are upset, they feel wronged, they want to be validated. So it's our first line of defense to keep that customer, one of our customers, and also prevent them from causing additional damage. Number two, if it is a somewhat serious complaint, it gives us the opportunity to jump into that investigation immediately and ward off or contain as much damage as we possibly can. All product complaints will be investigated. Okay, that's also very vague. When I get a complaint forwarded to me and it says the shipping box was damaged, guess what? That's going to be about a 30-second documentation of the investigation. Shipping box damage in transit, close it out. Young child takes the kids line, immune support, gets sick, goes to the emergency room. That's going to take a pretty significant level of resource and time, because we may need to go really speak with our attorneys and then gather as much documentation on the medical side and the complaint side as possible. And then depending on the outcome of the investigation, a recall may be necessary to mitigate further risk of injury or illness. Yes, absolutely. Kid goes to the emergency room. We're going to need to take our retained samples and then reach out to the contract manufacturer and say, hey, this just happened. We need to make sure that the entire lot is not contaminated. So those are just some examples of what happens when communicate complaints. Responsibility. All right, for now, until we get big enough to where we have a dedicated quality department, I will be responsible for implementing the product complaint policy and ensuring that all product complaints are properly documented, investigated, and responded to. It's also the contract manufacturers that produce products for us are responsible for storing retention samples of finished goods from each product lot. They will, and we will. We cannot solely rely on their ability to store retained samples. Something happens to their building, fire breaks out, burns it. Hey, we've got ours, so it's redundancy.
Hey, Misha, just wanted to let everybody know Lolo is on the call. Thanks, Lolo, for joining.
Hello, Lorraine. Right, the following steps shall be followed when Herbal Goodness receives a product complaint. Okay, the originator, Jerry, standing in line at the grocery store. He would be the originator in this scenario. He will go back to his phone, back to his house, and adequately document the details of the complaint in the product or the complaint details form. That's on the drive as well. The originator will then forward the completed document to me. So anybody and everybody that's employed by Herbal Goodness could be an originator. Most likely it's going to be our customer service team. It's going to be people that see the online emails. I'm not sure exactly who those go to first line, but they are the originators. They will have to fill out the complaint detail form and be as thorough and adequate with their details as possible. That will help me determine our response back to the customer. And I would also visit with Jerry and say, hey, we got this. Lady got sick, missed a day of work. This is my recommendation on how we respond. And then we do respond back to the customer. Upon receipt of the product complaint, Director of Operations shall document the complaint in the product complaint registry. Okay, I'll do that. That's something that the FDA will ask for. Hey, show me, have you guys had any product complaints in the last 3 years? If so, show me your log of them. And then we would pull this out and it would show papaya leaf, capsule submitted by or a complaint by Jane Smith, and it would have very surface level data. If they want to drill down and say, okay, what happened, then we'd have the documentation to show how they responded. Okay, the Director of Operations shall then notify the complainant that their complaint has been received and the complaint will be investigated. Somehow, some way, I want to work with our frontline people. I'm not sure who those are. Might be Lolo or I'm not sure who else. Who would be most likely to get a product complaint either by phone or by email. And then we need to have an immediate response to them saying, thank you, Jane. We received your complaint. We will be investigating your complaint and responding within 48 business hours. Something to that effect to let that person know that, hey, we've gotten it and we are looking into it. Moving along after properly.
I'm sorry, Misha. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, could you share the complaint detail form? Because sometimes customers reach out to us on social media. and it would be good to have access to the form in case there's any complaints so that we can properly document it.
Making a note of that, that was Miriam?
Yes.
Yes, that's a very good point. I'll make a note to send you guys that. It is on the drive. I just can't remember exactly off the top of my head where I put it, but I will send you a link to that. And
Hey, Misha, I have a question to this, Lorraine.
Yeah.
Is there a complaint category when you're saying complaint? Is it just basically complaint from getting sick standpoint from it, or a reaction, allergic reaction? Or could it be simple complaint of a bottle was broken?
Lorraine, that's a great question. Every complaint needs to be documented, no matter how small, how big. If we got a lot of small complaints that are complaining about the same thing,
Okay,
it might trigger us to say, hey, what's going on here with this cap? If we've got leaky caps, or our bottles are breaking a lot more frequently now. So it's not always a safety issue. A lot of times it could be an operations issue that we are not aware of. How would we be aware of that? Well, if we document it, then we have a log. So every customer complaint needs to be documented. Then once it gets sent to me, then I will assess the severity and the frequency of the complaint and then issue a risk assessment level for.
okay, so everything's on the table as far as complaints. It could be broken bottle, it could be allergic reaction, it could be your complaint would be your shipping. I know I have a guy from Canada. He says, the way you ship your product to me, I'm always subject to getting it put through customs. It needs to be repackaged. So that would be a valid complaint.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of a valid complaint terminology, you have invalid and valid. It would be a complaint that we would document.
Okay,
Takes us
okay.
5 seconds to document that. But if we have 10 people from Canada saying, hey, it's taking 3 times as long to get my product when you guys ship it this way, then we say, aha, we weren't aware of this. So it's not only a quality issue, it could be related to an operations issue, logistics,
Okay,
marketing.
okay. That's good to know, because I get a lot of miscellaneous, and I wasn't really understanding them to be a complaint per se. I think we're used to having complaint being from a safety standpoint. So that's great to know.
Well, in the context of this being quality, yes, we are about the health and safety of our consumers, but this is also serving us with an opportunity to identify things in operations. Again, logistics. Hey, you know what? I loved your old packaging. This packaging, frankly, sucks. It's terrible. I don't want to buy it again because I'm embarrassed to put it in my cabinet. Things like that. We need to know how.
That's great. I like it. I mean, I like it because you're going more from you're looking kind of at the overall, not just the safety. I like it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. But the FDA is only concerned about the health and safety. They could care less about people in Canada not getting their products on time. So anyway, did I answer your question, Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay. All right, after properly documenting the complaint in the product complaint register, which I will do, I will investigate the complaint and make an initial determination of the risk associated with the product complaint. If it's shipping box damage, guess what? 30 seconds, investigation complete. Risk assessment is as low can get. Kid goes to the emergency room. All right, that's going to take a bit. All right. Then I will forward. Oh, I'm sorry. I will follow the risk assessment protocol to mitigate any potential for additional risks. Hey, guess what? If that kid goes to the emergency room, then I'm going to send up all kinds of alerts and sirens and whistles and say, hey, you know, my Jerry, we got to get our heads around this and potentially get a handle on all of this lot to avoid additional damage. All observations, findings will be documented in a complaint investigation form. If I go to the emergency room where this kid was treated, I mean, there's a lot of legal things to that. I wouldn't be able to walk in and ask for records. There's HIPAA, and that's actually kind of a rough example. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole there, but we will document as much as we possibly can. The complaint investigation form shall be completed. Once the investigation is complete, I will forward it to Jerry, the COO, for final approval and or disposition. And then Jerry can do with it what he likes, or say, hey, Misha, your investigation is terrible. We're going to have to redo this, or hey, you did great work, and we'll just get Unoma to look over it and we'll respond. So if necessary, if a product complaint involves serious illness or injury, we may consult with a healthcare provider to ascertain the severity of the product complaint. If consultation is rendered, Herbal Goodness will include consultation details in the product complaint investigation. Yeah, that opens up an entire new can of worms in terms of this this training deck, but that's why I think Unoma has an attorney. If somebody were to get seriously ill, or even it could be fatal, then we would seek legal representation in that scenario. So additional steps. I'm gonna blow through this stuff because we're a little behind, but okay, you guys will have the deck. So thing is tell all of your people that everyone is responsible for documenting a complaint if they hear it. Standing in line in the grocery store, getting an email, getting a text message. One of your best friends says, hey, Misha, that papaya leaf was the worst ever. It tasted like dirty socks. Then, yeah, I would document that. And if we have 4 or 5 customer complaints that say, no, papaya leaf extract tastes like dirty socks, or it tastes like spoiled hot dogs, then we might have an issue and we can address it. And then I will do all the risk assessment, and I'll get to that in a second. Let's move down here. Okay, this is the risk assessment control measure. You have essentially an X and a Y. You have the severity, which I talked about earlier, negligible. Hey, the shrink band, the neck band came off as soon as I opened the box. All the way to extreme, imminent and immediate danger of death or severe sickness. Okay, so let's look at the extreme. Okay, kid goes to the emergency room for anaphylactic shock after taking our immune support for kids line. Then we have, can everybody see my cursor?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. You have your frequency. Okay, we've been selling the kids line for 16 years now. We've had 1.23 million units sold in those 16 years. And this is the very first case of somebody being hospitalized. So you have your continuum here, very unlikely, rarely occurs. It's possible that it might happen. It's likely to occur or occurs frequently. So I would look at, okay, kid went to the emergency room. Okay, you could make an argument that it would be one of these two, but I'm going to err on the side of being more conservative and say, yeah, we're going to treat this as extreme. However, out of 1,230,000 units sold, this is the only one that's ever happened. I'm going to say it's very unlikely. You can get into, okay, how do you quantify that? Well, 1 out of 1.23 million statistically is highly unlikely. So it would be assessed at a 5. And that would be a medium risk. And then I would tell Jerry and hey, we need to consider this as a medium risk and follow up accordingly. Does anybody have any questions about this tool? Um, at, at,
So Misha, you would be the one to use this tool pretty much. You get the complaints, and then based on this tool, you would classify the complaints, and then we would take action based on your classification.
100% correct. They get a complaint, shipping box damaged, negligible. That's not going to have any effect on their health or safety. How likely is that to happen? I would say, okay, we've had 15 complaints in the last 3 months. I would say it's likely to occur. Yeah, and I'd say, all right, based on what I assessed, it's a low risk. So yes, that's correct. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this? Product complaint policies and procedures.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you're one complaint out of the 1.9 million, put it into a medium risk and instantly.
Well, because of the severity, the kid went to the emergency room and almost died. So yeah, it was the severity that that put it into the medium risk. Now, if we've had several complaints of the same nature, then it would have score probably into a high risk. Let's say out of the 1.23 million sold, this is the 12th case that has happened. So I'm sorry, like let's say there's been 60 cases. Well, I would say it's possible that it occurs and would assign a value of 12, which would put it in a high risk category. So yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
Either extreme on your x-axis or y-axis can affect the overall risk classification. All right, moving on. SOP QA 004, product recall policies and procedures. Try to get through this quickly. The purpose of this training deck is to define all the requirements that we would go through for recalling a product. We would recall a product if it were contaminated, adulterated, misbranded, poses a threat to consumers. Now, that's when the FDA gets involved. If we say, hey, you know what, we've gotten a lot of feedback from our customers saying our packaging is terrible. The dropper and the tinctures are not nearly as good as they used to be. That could be something to say, hey, we might need to go get these, but I'm not really seeing that happen. But again, if it hits any of these, contamination, adulterated, misbranded, or possesses a threat to consumers. Just for interaction's sake, what does anybody have any ideas or thoughts what I mean by adulterated? How would a product be adulterated? Anybody with any thoughts? All right, going once.
Would a adulterated be a label had been changed, something on that had been altered in some way, scratched, mutilated, something that would not allow our full branding or explanation of the product to be read or easily read?
Thinking adulterated might be, or if somebody else wants, adulterated means purity has been compromised. So if we said it's 100% glycerin, maybe there's, glycerin and some muddy, murky water that's not in there. That's what I'm thinking as adulteration, something impure. It's not the pure product that was presented.
So the product would then have had to have been opened and at some point then contaminated.
Well, Jerry, yours actually would fall more into the misbranding if a customer was not able to read. Let's say we didn't meet the standard for font size and they couldn't read the ingredients, or Unoma is okay. The most times that a product would be adulterated is called economically motivated adulteration. Let's say that we claim that our papaya leaf extract is 95% pure. Unoma says, hey, Jerry, Misha, there's some cheap, crappy papaya leaf. It's only 75% pure. Let's buy that and then put it in our product. That would be kind of adulterated and misbranded. It really happened a lot with, don't mean to be funny here, but male enhancement products. A lot of them, they were using the same, the drug that's in, what's the blue pill? We're all adults here. Viagra.
Viagra, yeah.
Yes. There were a lot of sports nutrition brands that were producing products that were marketed as male enhancement. These are all over the counter, but they were using the same drug that they used in Viagra. So the FDA cracked down on it and said, okay, all of your products are adulterated, because they were calling that drug something else. They were calling it, I don't even remember what it was. But those are some examples of adulteration. Back to the subject matter, recall policies and procedures to provide guidelines for our firm, Herbal Goodness, to test its ability to recall a product through a mock recall. I'll get more into this shortly. This applies to the recall of any product contaminated, adulterated, or misbranded to prevent injury to consumers. This procedure also applies to any dietary supplement product produced using a raw material component or product contact packaging component found to be contaminated, adulterated, misbranded. Back to Jerry's example, adulteration. If we put a label on that is not showing what's actually in the product itself, then that would be misbranded. If we put a 70% pure papaya leaf extract in there, but claiming that it was 95%, that would be misbranded. Responsibilities in order to protect our consumers from potentially adverse effects. I want you guys to pay attention to that term, adverse effects. That's also a term used in 21 CFR 111, serious adverse events and effects. The manufacturer must immediately initiate voluntary recall of any dietary supplement product that has been determined to be contaminated, adulterated, or misbranded. Manufacturer, this also means us as well. If we are able to determine that any of our products are contaminated, adulterated, or misbranded before Davidson's finds out, then we need to call them and say, hey, look, you need to get your quality team involved, and this is what we're doing to recall this product. The decision to voluntarily recall a product must be made by a responsible decision maker who has the authority to assign the recall classification to the situation in cooperation with federal and state agencies. Any voluntary recall, this is not stipulated in the SOP, but I would forward that to Jerry or Unoma, and I would give my insight. I would give my suggestion, but ultimately it's their or her decision to make. Sometimes there are recalls that are not imminent to imminent danger to consumer health and safety. Responsibilities continued. Okay, product recall team. must be convened immediately when a class 1, 2, or 3 situation exists. Class 1 and 2, I'll get into that very shortly. All information received in the process of recalling a product must be approved by the product recall coordinator. At present, I am the product recall coordinator. Yeah, per the name, I would coordinate all the procedures required in a recall. And then, you know, about myself, Jerry, we would discuss the merits of the recall and decide what action we take next. All communication released regarding a product recall must be released by a qualified individual as assigned by the CEO or COO. So what that means is if SOM2 hears that, okay, we're recalling a papaya leaf extract, and either Jerry or Yanoma has not said, hey, SOM2, guess what? We're doing a product recall. Be sure to tell everybody this and this. SOM2 is not able to go out and talk about the recall with anyone. It could adversely affect us in our business. And it, you know, frankly, it may be a rumor, or it may be something that we considered, but after the investigation, we said, you know what, it's a bad situation, but we decided not to do a recall. So it would be a case where, as I see it right now, either Jerry or Yanoma would be the only ones that would speak with people outside of the Herbal Goodness organization about a recall. So
Jerry, I mean, Misha, just to confirm, if we are looking at a potential recall, only the CEO or authorized persons can, you know, talk about it outside the company. What about if the recall has been issued?
There's no guidance in 21 CFR that prevents anybody from talking about it. This is more of a business decision where we want to, I would suggest containing it as much as possible until you, Jerry, myself say, okay, this is our official policy, or this is our official response as it relates to public information.
Okay.
We don't want this information getting out that we're doing a recall because there's rat poison that inadvertently made it into our papaya leaf extract. In actuality, it was not rat poison. We just put too much papaya leaf extract in it, and it's making people sick.
Okay, now I see.
So we just want to be very accurate and controlled with the information that's given. That's just my suggestion. Again, FDA does not regulate how a brand releases information about a recall, other than saying qualified individual. Did that answer your question, Yanoma?
Yes, it did. Yes, thank you.
Okay, responsibilities continued. Product manager or designee will be responsible for reporting quantity. Okay, this is going to go into more of the product recall team and discussing. It's really not super important at the moment, so I'll move on. Product recall team shall include persons with expertise in the following areas. And the major takeaway here is not everybody on the product recall team needs to be quality trained or quality qualified. So it would actually do us well to have people in from the customer service team to say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea to respond this way or that way. Purchasing, yeah, we purchased it from not Sri Lanka this time, but Kashmir, and maybe that's been shown to have higher risk components or herbs. So it's good to have a very diverse team set up because it gives you different perspective. You have all people from quality on there, then you're going to talk in circles and it would be hard to reach a conclusion. All right, yeah. This is the current product recall team. Jerry, I'm not sure if you were made aware, but yep, I think Unoma and I, or Unoma put your name on this when we were in the either in the audit, or your name made it on the list somehow. And this is absolutely, we can add to this, or as time goes on. So this is the current product recall team, our responsibilities, and then our contact phone numbers. Okay, here's your classifications of recalls. Class 1 is your most severe, and class 3 is your least severe. The one takeaway here is that class 1 and class 2, the FDA and customers need to be notified. Class 3 is the only one that requires just the customers being notified. So we don't need to call the FDA and say, hey, guess what, guys, we're issuing class 3 product recall. I would suggest that we probably should just shoot them a little email and notify them, hey, I know we're not required to, but we want to be transparent with you guys and let you know what we're doing. But class 1, most severe. Class 3, least severe. 1 and 2, FDA and customers need to be notified. Any questions on that? All right, this covers what information that we need to collect. These are examples, definitely not limited to these, but this would be something that the product recall team would collect. This goes into your strategy. You guys, again, will have access to this, so I'm going to go very quickly. Disposition of a recalled product. That really talks about once we have physically received the recalled product, how we identify it, how we mark it, how we make sure that it's quarantined away from any possible possibility that it could inadvertently be put back into inventory at the warehouse. So it's something that we need to be very cognizant of, and that would be something that I would be responsible for. Okay, when is a recall officially over with, or when has it been terminated? This is the definition in 21 CFR. After every reasonable effort has been made to identify the locations of the products named in the recall. Hey, you know what? Unoma made Mike's. What's Mike's? The name of the retail store in McKinney, Unoma?
It's Mike's Health Collection.
Mike's Health Collection. She made Mike a heck of a deal, and we sold 5,000 units of her papaya leaf to them. He's the only one that has that lot. It sucks to be him, but it makes it very easy for us. We reached out to Mike and said, hey, guess what? We need to get that collected. Put that in the back of your store. It will be by in 20 minutes to get it. So once we've identified the locations, in this instance, it's one location. Product has been recalled, removed from the market. Mike walks out, pulls all the products of that lot off the shelf, puts it in the back room. The recall would then be considered complete when the FDA and all customers have been notified. So Mike and us would be responsible for calling John and Sue and Mary and Samtu and Miriam, saying, hey, I'm so sorry, but if he actually had a record of that, which I don't think that many retailers do keep that unless they have a rewards program where it says Samtu purchased the papaya leaf on August 1st. So so that would terminate the recall. We'd be done and we could move on. Okay, mock recalls, just give you a basic overall summary. The FDA wants us to conduct a mock recall, a minimum of one time each year. What this does is we would randomly select a product and say, okay, the kids' immune support tincture, 1 ounce tincture, is contaminated with mercury, then we would have to go through the mock recall, convene the mock recall or the recall team, and then go through the recall procedures that were outlined in previous slides. We need to be able to show within 4 hours. This is key, because this is expected by the FDA, 4 hours with a recovery rate of 100% of all products implicated in the trace mock recall or trace exercise. Any deviation should be documented and explained clearly. If we come back with a 97.6% recovery rate, then we need to be able to explain the delta there and say, well, we believe that the others that we couldn't identify or account for were damaged at the warehouse, and we didn't keep records when we just tossed them in the trash. So it really lets us know where we are in terms of, if unfortunately we had to do a product recall, how we would perform.
So Misha, are you saying that we're required to do a mock recall once a year? We've gotten away so far with not doing a mock recall.
That's yes, that is stipulated in the 21 CFR. Mock recalls have to be conducted once a year.
Oh.
I'm surprised that the auditors didn't dig into that as much, because I think it was said, yeah, we haven't done one yet. So I think we dodged a bullet there, but yes, it is a requirement.
Let me ask you, Misha, because
Yes.
it says we need to test our ability to recall a product through the first level of distribution.
Yeah.
So we can pick our product that we want to do a mock recall on. And that's going to be something that is stocked at our warehouse, that all we've got to do is pick it, pull it within 4 hours and account for it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would imagine that Brilliant, this is something that they're used to, because if they're dealing with any product with the FDA, everybody's going to have to comply in the same manner that we do. So we simply just can pick a product, maybe that's at low stock or whatever, pick it, pull it, or somehow, I should say, mark it, band it, do something so that we can say or get a confirmation your product has been successfully pulled. We get that email, and that's enough to show that we're in compliance, correct?
That's perfect, Jerry. 100%. And that's something that we could go, and we will go to Brilliant and say, hey, need your mock recall SOP, and then let's sit down and discuss doing one, at least one this year, which I very much would like to do, or we need to do. And we'll work through it together. Sometimes we can, it's really not bad on a brand side. It gets very, very complicated at the manufacturer side if the FDA so chooses to say, okay, I want you to do a mock recall on your papaya leaf extract lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you could have put that lot into 25 different products for 25 different brands. So yeah, the first level of distribution as a brand is, I'm going to say, relatively easy, but it's definitely not complicated relative to manufacturing. So I like our chances of that task within 4 hours for sure.
Yeah, so that's my point. So we could pick a SKU and say that we've marked this particular SKU for our mock recall, and all Brilliant has to do is identify where that's at, have a method of being able to yellow tape it or whatever so that it can't move, and then reply back to us that that product has been indicated, marked, and officially then mock recalled, and then we're done.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect. All right, good question, Jerry, or good point. Any other questions about mock recall? Let's see, recall to. All right, and that concludes our training deck for product recall policies and procedures. Any questions about the overall training deck? All right, I made it through 2 of them in 1 hour, so I've got to speed up a bit. I'm sorry. All right, on to the next one. All right, now we're going to SOP QA-005, holding and distribution policies and procedures. All right, this procedure applies to anyone who is responsible for receiving, storing, preparing, and shipping herbal goodness ingredients and finished products. Quality manager, anytime that we see quality manager in any of these slides, it's at right now that would be me. Anytime you ever see quality control or quality assurance, right now we really don't have those. So I've tried to move those terms over to the quality unit. So if you ever see that quality manager, that would be me. QA QC is referred to the quality unit. Okay, let's see. Manager responsible for ensuring that this procedure is implemented and upheld by all herbal business team members and by all warehousing and fulfillment vendors for each lot of raw materials and finished consumer products. UNOMA is ultimately responsible for ensuring that all policies are implemented and upheld. I can't stress enough that it's not just my job or UNOMA's job to ensure quality. It's every employee of herbal goodness. It's all of our responsibility to uphold and prioritize quality. But ultimately, heavy is the head that wears the crown. UNOMA is ultimately responsible.
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. All right. Talks about the procedures in 21 CFR. For those of you that are not familiar with 21 CFR, that is what the FDA uses as its regulatory guideline and requirements. 21 CFR 111 is what dictates regulations for dietary supplements. Now, when you see the period or the decimal and the additional, the 455, those are different sections that drill down a little bit further. So you could actually Google this, 21 CFR 111 455B, and it would show you hold packaging and labels under appropriate conditions so that the packaging and labels are not adversely affected. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we want to make sure that, why does the FDA care about if a label is wrinkled or scratched? They really don't. The main concern with labels and packaging is that we secure them, or that contract manufacturers secure them so that somebody doesn't go steal them and mix up papaya leaf extract in their bathtub or their garage and sell it as if it were herbal goodness. And then trusting customers go out and buy this thinking that they're purchasing it from us, but in fact, they're purchasing it from John Doe that just made it in their garage and exposed our customers to every known microorganism on the planet Earth. So that's really their main concern, that like we can't just throw out old versions of labels that we don't use anymore. maybe we purchased 10,000 of them, we use 8,000 in production, so we have 2,000 left over. We can't just toss them in the trash. The FDA will actually go diving in dumpsters and to see what they can find. They find 2,000 labels that had not been properly defaced. Guess what? You're going to get an observation. So that's what's meant by holding packaging and labels under appropriate conditions. Components, same thing. Dietary supplements packaging. We don't want to mix up. We don't want to mix up the, this is more on the contract manufacturer side. We don't want to mix up papaya and then think that we're putting papaya into papaya capsules, but we're actually putting it into graviola containers. Consumers buy it thinking it's papaya, but they're thinking it's graviola, but in fact it's papaya. That would be misbranding. So we just have to be very, very cognizant, very aware that we're keeping all components, meaning packaging, ingredients, scoops, labels, pouches. We're keeping it in appropriate conditions, not only like in appropriate environmental conditions, but anybody have any questions about that? A lot of this relates to the contract manufacturer, their quality team, their quality unit.
So Misha, do you want to skip over what doesn't relate to the team?
Say that again?
Do you want to skip over what relates to the contract manufacturer and just?
Yeah. Okay, I'll just talk about reserve samples. If you guys ever hear of retained samples or reserve samples, those are, say for example, we produce 2,000 papaya leaf extract, 60 count containers. We would need to take at least 3 of those off the line when they are in their finished state. Not meaning capsules, put them in a Ziploc bag and send them to the lab for testing. It's you grab a bottle that has the 60 capsules, that has been sealed, has the external shrink band or neck seal on it. We grab those and send those off for testing. And we also have the retention samples that we would keep at Unoma's office in McKinney for future use. Hopefully we wouldn't need them, but if so, we do have them. So representative, reserve, and retention samples are very important. Okay, here, retention samples will be stored at Unoma's office in McKinney. Just if anybody were to ever ask you, hey, where are your retained or retention samples? They're at the Herbal Goodness main office in McKinney, Texas.
I think this is also important, especially for Sumto and maybe even as the operations teams, that anytime we manufacture a product, we are required to ship, like Misha said, at least 3 units of that lot number to the office in McKinney, where I keep them as retained samples. So Sumto, this is something, I know we do this, we've done this in the past, but not really following a process. So now we have a log where each time we manufacture a product, it should be part of that process where, we pay the PO, we set up the PO, we pay the invoice, we do shipping. At the point of shipping, we should be sending retained samples to the Herbal Goodness office.
You're absolutely right, Unoma, 100%. It's not a sometimes or with it. If you're not familiar with the term, skip a lot.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a certain amount of testing that's done on a skip a lot basis, meaning that you don't have to do every time. But with regard to retention samples, every time we produce a lot of finished goods, we have to get retention samples sent.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes, it's not a most of the time, it's 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So it serves to protect us. Now, when the auditors did come, they asked to see the retention sample log, and they also said, hey, can you show me the retention samples? You know, I had to walk them to her office where she keeps them. And then they took it a step further and said, okay, well, since you have these stored here, I need to see your sanitation and cleaning
Yes.
SOPs and logs, and also your pest control. Well, we had to reach out to the building manager and say, hey, can we get your SOP and cleaning frequency and how is it treated for pests? So I'm sorry, going into too much detail, but it's something that's very important. Okay, this is very important. It's quality. The quality team or quality unit personnel must not approve and release for distribution for any of the following reasons. Rebatch does not meet identity specification or product specification. Very quickly, if it's a papaya leaf extract and we test it for identity, meaning, hey, we want to prove that our product is actually papaya leaf. If we can't show that or get tests to prove that, then we cannot and should not release that product into distribution. Any batch of product, including any reprocessed batch that has not been manufactured, packaged, labeled, or held under conditions to prevent adulteration. This is where it gets into, well, is it possible that that the product was contaminated? Well, you would do your micros testing at the end on the finished product. But micros testing is not going to show every possible contamination. There may be foreign material, there may be broken glass in your product, there may be pesticides or some other inadvertent chemical that was introduced into our liquid extracts. So if you cannot prove to me that you kept your pesticides away from the production line when you were producing our papaya leaf extract liquid, then we're not going to release that product into distribution. Getting into details here. Okay, just in summary, documentation of any product distribution. We have to essentially record where the product goes. It goes to made at, let's say, Utah. Utah produces our product, ships it to Brilliant. We have to have documentation showing that transfer. They actually ask for BOLs or bill of lading from some of the manufacturers to EFS at the time. And then we have to actually have a record of where it is distributed to. So that's just a very basic level explanation of documentation. Talking about when we are responsible for issuing our own internal lot number, something that we do for any of our manufacturers, Unoma?
No, we don't do any lot numbering. Our manufacturers actually do their own lot numbering and we carry through. So I think that we may need to edit this lot numbering section.
Okay. For those of you that are on the call, according to Unoma, we don't do this. All lot numbers are generated by the contract manufacturers.
That's correct.
That lot number is communicated to us, either by the certificate of analysis or any other documentation shipping records, packing slips, BOLs, things of that nature.
Yes. So all our lot numbers are generated by contract manufacturers. So we should not have a system for generating lot.
Gotcha. I'll make a note to okay, verification record keeping, third-party warehouse and fulfillment center. For those of you that are not aware, we are transitioning away from EFS that's in Michigan and transitioning to our new fulfillment center in Grapevine, Texas, called Brilliant Fulfillment. So you guys might start to see things with Brilliant Fulfillment on there. If any of your people in your department have any questions about that, we are not fully out of EFS yet. And SOM2 probably has the best handle on what's there and what's at Brilliant. But if they have any questions, we are transitioning to Brilliant. That was a strategic decision made so that we could, over time, reduce costs, logistics costs, moving products from contract manufacturers to Michigan. Traceability, this goes back to, kind of relates back to the recall or the mock recall. Each of our products has to be traceable back to specific lots of the raw materials used in production. This is more at the contract manufacturer level, where they're going to know what lot of papaya leaf extract they use. And they're going to say, okay, you know what, we produced 2,700 units for you. We produced 1,700 units for ABC Herbal. So they're the ones that would keep the detailed documents on the raw materials. We just have to do it at the finished product level. Product storage, order fulfillment. I'm just going to move through this. This describes EFS, and then this is the new one, Brilliant Fulfillment in Grapevine. This just talks about when our products are in your warehouse, they have to be kept away from contamination. They can't be exposed to water or outside elements, or when your pest control service comes by, they can't expose products to pesticides. All of our products need to be in airtight containers. It's essentially protecting the integrity of our product. All right, any questions there with holding and distribution policies? All right, moving along. All right, SOP QA 006, material review and disposition. Probably go very quickly through this. This is mainly exclusive to the quality unit, although we do have members that are not on the quality unit that are on the material review board. Actually, we don't. I'm sorry, I'm confusing that with the recall team. So we would have to stand up a material review board at some point, but let me see. Essentially, I'm just going to summarize the entire deck here. It mostly relates to any type of product complaint where we may decide to do a material review, where we look at the finished product and say, okay, what's going on here with this this trend in customer complaints, saying that there's a foul odor coming from the mango leaf tea. Normally it smells very sweet and I like the smell of it. Now it smells like garlic. We would need to do a material review, do an investigation there, and say, this is actually not, there's no way this could be mango. This is garlic. They use garlic instead of mango. And then we would make a decision and issue a disposition to say, okay, we're going to recall all of we're doing market withdrawal. I don't want to go into details about the differences there, but market withdrawal on the mango leaf tea that actually has garlic in it. So we would issue a disposition saying, okay, everything that we have in our current inventory, we are going to quarantine. And then from quarantine, we will dispose of it so that customers don't buy mango leaf tea and they're getting garlic. This responsibility really relies on the quality unit. There's certain requirements for rejecting. This also applies, to packaging. Say we order labels or pouches or boxes that do not meet our specifications. We would have to do a material review board and say, okay, you know what, this is not our fault. We're going to push this back on the printer, and then we need a credit memo for $15,000. Okay, here, Herbal Business Quality Control personnel, which quality unit must conduct material review and make a disposition when finished product is shipped to the customer and returned to the state not acceptable for reshelving. Okay, the customer gets the mango leaf tea, tastes like garlic. They send it back. They've already opened it. And so there's no way that we're going to reprocess, rework that product and put it back on the shelf. It's not going to happen. Also, if a customer complaint of red, which is in another training deck, assesses the level of risk and our appropriate actions if it's red, maybe a recall determination is made by the quality unit in material review board. Be discarded. Yeah, same thing. Material review board or quality unit decides that the returned products are no longer able to be sold. We'll quarantine them and then most likely have them destroyed or properly disposed of. We'll cover that before, and I apologize for going through this, but given the limited amount of time, and I can absolutely, we're not finished here, I'm just going fast. If you guys have any questions or would like to spend some extra time on quality related training, I'm always available to spend time with you. So any questions on the material review and disposition procedures?
Great job, Misha. You're rolling through.
Thank you, Yunoma.
Any other questions? Jerry, you have a question?
And most of all of this, Misha, is going to be done at Brilliant, though, with the disposition and so we're gonna, need to have our point person there that we'll probably need to set a meeting up with and make sure, and I'm sure they've gone through this before, but make sure that they're on board with us as well. And we've got our own little section in our slot where anything that's returned goes there, and we can track it and keep it.
Well, 100%, and they have SOP procedures that are in place. When they get product returns, this is what they do, and they set things aside, and they have qualified people that are able to make a decision based on their experience. If they are not comfortable making a decision, then they would contact me. I've talked to Michael about that. So we're surface level understanding right now. It's just something that we're going to have to tighten up with them, so that when they do get a product return, they say yay, nay, they kick it into the quarantine bin or the throw it away bin, or they reshelf it. So you're exactly right. This will 99% of the time be handled at Brilliant.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, this one is SOP QA 007, Manufacturer Vendor Supplier Qualification Policies and Procedures. This one is a very, very important slide deck. I'm just going to summarize, go through a couple slides. Actually, I didn't do this one, Som too good. So I'm just going to summarize it. The FDA, they're scrutinizing more and more about how a company such as ourselves qualifies a manufacturer, a vendor, or supplier of components, meaning our actual herbs. Where do we get those from? There are certain countries that have higher risks associated with purchasing those raw materials from, because they lack the quality management system to ensure that they are keeping contamination away, that the purity is where it needs to be. So let's say, for example, I'm not really picking on these countries, but India and China are probably the two countries that pose the highest risk for importing raw materials from. They, on the flip side of that, they're also they've been historically the least expensive. So there's usually a pretty strong correlation when you have a very stringent and very well run quality program. Your costs to purchase from companies like that are a little bit more expensive than ones that really don't care
Yes.
the level of quality. So the FDA wants to make sure that you are using and choosing vendors and manufacturers that are meeting our quality specifications. And then this slide that goes into, okay, how do we exactly qualify manufacturer, vendor, or supplier? That FDA auditor comes in and says, okay, you have how many contract manufacturers? Well, we have three main ones that we use for producing about 98% of our finished products. Okay, have you qualified them? Well, kind of, sort of, or yeah, absolutely. We qualified them initially with our vendor qualification procedures, which usually consists of a questionnaire that the vendor, supplier, or manufacturer would fill out. Somebody from our company would do an on-site visit to make sure what they're saying on the questionnaire is indeed factual, that they're not pulling the wool over our heads and essentially being fraudulent, telling us one thing, but in actuality not. We go do a facility tour, ask questions. We're essentially doing, we are auditing them. They want our business, they want our money, so they will, in most cases, allow that. If not, then we say, hey, you know what? We'll go to your competitor that will allow us to conduct an audit and assure us of their level of quality. So we've initially qualified our contract manufacturers. The FDA wants to make sure that we continue to qualify on a periodic basis. Well, periodic basis is subjective. It actually says in the 21 CFR 111, periodic basis. Okay, Jerry, how do you define periodic? All right, Yanoma, what's your definition of periodic? Actually, Lorraine, you answer this for me. What would you consider to be periodic requalification of a manufacturer? What does that look like for you?
Are you asking me this?
Yep. How much periodic? If we have to periodically requalify contract manufacturers and suppliers, how often would you say we do that?
Yearly, annually?
I think that's a great start. Good job. The answer to an FDA auditor is it depends on the risk level associated with that manufacturer or vendor. Although we may import materials from India, which is high risk, we still do it because they have proven that over time that their product is actually high quality. Well, we would assess them and say hypothetically, they are a high risk supplier of graviola. So we would, because they're in high risk, we would requalify them more frequently than a low risk supplier of graviola. So the answer to that is, what does periodic requalification mean? It's all based on the level of risk assigned to the supplier or manufacturer. So again, just to reiterate the main point here, FDA wants us to make sure that we qualify and continue to qualify all of our suppliers, vendors, and manufacturers. It's a good thing to do at least on an annual basis. And in most cases, we can just send them a questionnaire and say, fill this out. If we see anything that we're concerned about, then we'll follow up with it.
So quick question, Misha, not to slow us down. I love that you're going really quite quickly, but so does that not bring up a question then about what is the level of risk for each of our vendors? Do we need to then have a list that says, Sri Lanka is low risk versus our Indian supplier who is okay. All right. Okay, then. All right. You answered my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that to anybody who asks, not just because you're my boss, but yeah, we have criteria here that helps us determine what is a high risk, low risk, medium risk. This is, we can do a lot of it by C of A confirmation, which means if 80 split, let's say, base of Herbal sends us a C of A saying, okay, all the microbiological results came back within range. And then we say, you know what, we love you guys, but we're going to do our own test. And then our test revealed that is not the case. So we have to do some due diligence on our end, and then assess everybody on our own. If the FDA says, okay, what about Davidson's Organic? Where do you guys consider them in terms of risk assessment? Well, they're low risk. Okay, why? Show me why you classify them there. Well, because they've done this, they've done that. They've been in the business for 37 years. They've never had any warning letters. They continually have adequate C of A's. We test those C of A's twice a year. Things like that. That's a good question. Anybody else questions about manufacturer, vendor, supplier qualification? All right. Return
And Misha, when we change manufacturers, do we need to write them off, or is there a protocol to remove them from that as well?
Your question is, if we no longer do business with a supplier or vendor, manufacturer, do we formal documentation process of terminating with them?
Correct. So that we have an actual end date for the FDA that shows that we've ceased all transactions?
That's a good question. What we do right now, and Sumto, maybe you can jump in on this, is we have a list of active vendors. And when we decide that we no longer are doing business with them, we deactivate that vendor. They go to archived vendors or whatever. But we don't, that's really the process of moving somebody from active to archived vendor. Other than that, there is no other process. Perhaps we should be putting a date to the day they were archived. But I don't know that we're required to report on that. All we're required to report on is our active vendors. Are you qualifying them? And how are you doing that?
There's merits to that, Jerry. If in the case that a contract manufacturer has proven to, let's say, conduct business that's unethical or not within CGMP, current good manufacturing practices. For example, not to get into too much detail, SK Labs in California, they got hit time after time after time for doing unethical and frankly illegal manufacturing. And let's say we were doing business with them, and then we found out about all these violations. Then I would say that we would make an official documentation terminating our relationship with that manufacturer. Now, I never want to burn a bridge and say, hey, ABC manufacturer, we're no longer doing business with you because you're too expensive. You never know when we might have to call and say, hey, need you guys to just have a jam here. So I've only done it maybe once or twice where I've officially terminated a relationship, and it's all based on quality, not on anything else. So I always like to keep manufacturers, suppliers, especially suppliers. My goodness. So it's a good thing to have a list of actives, which I think we do, but there is nothing in the regulations that say or require us.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yep. Good question. Absolutely. SOP QA 009, return products and policies. We've actually covered a lot of this in the previous holding, distribution, and product recall, product complaint policies, SOPs. So a lot of this stuff has been covered in 3 previous training decks. This just goes a little bit more in depth. SOP QA 010, labeling and packaging policies and procedures. Go into that. Got 19 minutes to finish these. But labeling and packaging is mostly important, again, for the quality unit, but it's also important for everyone to have a basic understanding of why we do what we do. Let's see. There are a lot of regulations what you can and can't put on a label. Okay, this is a question for the group. Looking at this image, this picture of our tea box, is this a dietary supplement or is this a beverage? You know, you're not able to answer this.
To answer what, please? Tell me.
Yeah. So somebody tell me, is this a dietary supplement or a
Beverage, because it says nutrition facts.
You are 100% correct. Okay, what the problem that we ran into a couple weeks ago when we were being audited on the front of our, I don't know if we have one here in the deck.
No, we don't.
Here's a very small picture. On the front of it, we had herbal tea and the word supplement on the front. So, okay, was it a dietary supplement or is it a beverage? FDA didn't like that. They said, hey, you know what? You got to pick one or the other. You can't have both, because 21 CFR 111 governs dietary supplements. 21 CFR 117 covers food and beverages. Different regulations, different requirements for labeling. So that's why it's important there that it's something very small, but a nutrition fact panel is for food and beverages. A supplement fact panel is for dietary supplements. And then this talks about the things that are required. I'll go through that real quick. These are the things that are absolute requirements on every label, regardless of what type of product it is in terms of dietary supplement, whether it's liquid extract, it's bulk, it's capsules. You have to have the statement of identity, meaning papaya leaf extract, right? Big bold letter at the very front. The net quantity of the content statement, the amount that's in the actual container, supplement labeling. That would be your nutrition fact panel. It's already, we're dealing with kind of two different things. We're talking about the T box, which is nutrition, and it's not a supplement, but you have to have the supplement labeling, which we go back to this part in here. It talks about your calories, total fats, cholesterol, all those macro and micronutrients. Ingredient list. You have to list every ingredient with there are some nuanced exceptions. You have what's called active ingredients and excipients. Active ingredients are the ones that are in enough quantity that they have proven that they will affect your body to some degree. Excipients are usually ingredients that help in the manufacturing process. A lot of ingredients can be sticky, cannot flow through their machines well, won't encapsulate well, so they have to add excipients. You'll see on a lot of our capsules, you have the brown rice hull ingredient listed in the other ingredients. Your active ingredient would be the papaya leaf, and your excipient would be your brown whole rice, brown rice hull. Name and place of business of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor. We have our McKinney, Texas address on the back of all of our products. And then this is arguably the most important, is anytime that we have a structure or function claim, you'll see that it is identified by the asterisk. Let's see if I can find one. Here we have our address. This talks about, okay, here's our actives, papaya seed powder. Other ingredients, the hypromellose capsule. That's what the capsule is made out of. And then the rice flour, and then leucine. See if I can find the disclaimer. Sorry guys, I can't find an example close by. But what this says is any type of, if it says has been shown to increase blood platelet counts, or helps detox, or helps with digestion, we have to put an asterisk by each and every one of those structure function claims that goes back to stating that the FDA has not evaluated and or approved that statement. So we can't trick a customer into saying, hey, buy our product and it will prevent heart attacks for the rest of your life. We can't make that claim. We can make claims such as has been shown to increase cardiovascular health with the asterisk by it because it's not a proven fact. There's a lot of correlated data that suggests it, but the FDA is not going to get behind that statement and say, yep, absolutely, we agree with it. That's just not something that they do. not just for herbal goodness, but for any dietary supplement on the market.
Quick question, Misha. Again, not trying to slow us down, but this is fantastic as label requirements. I wonder if this also translates to our website. So if we make any sort of functional claims on our website, do we need to asterisk it and then reference it, cross-reference it to the FDA disclaimer?
A very, very good point. It would be in our best interest to have a disclaimer for anything that is in the kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
Structure function claims, claims of any sort are very open to interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah. A brief discussion. Well, the statement came from a consumer.
Yes.
Kind of like, well, other consumers can jump on that and say, well, it worked for Shirley and then it worked for John. Surely it'll work for me. If we have a disclaimer that's very clear, we would probably be able to argue our way out of a discussion item or even an observation. If we said, well, we have this disclaimer saying that these claims made are not approved by the FDA. So yeah, that's absolutely something that we should do. Just like I think we were trying to work on doing it for social media platforms, but we were constricted by size or wording. I don't know what it was.
Good point. Something we should think about with Sunto, who's responsible for both Sunto and Esther, who are responsible for content on our Shopify and some on Amazon. Let's talk about this. Sunto, if you would send me an email referencing this, let's make a decision. If you would really send, CC Misha, CC me. Let's make a decision if we want to go through our web pages and also make hold ourselves to the same standards as we do on the labels.
I think it would be something, I don't want to suggest like a pop-up where you have like a, get 20% off your first order today pop-up, but if we have something that pops up and says any claims made by consumers we can get creative how we word it, but just so we can protect ourselves. So yeah, we can discuss that certainly. Any other questions about labeling requirements? It's actually pretty in-depth and it can be complicated, especially regarding claims. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. One thing that I do want to point out that you may start to notice on our packaging, all labels, pouches, packaging going forward will have what's called a version control number that will in most cases be located by the UPC. If everybody can see the CPSP-1.0, that's an internal system that allows us to identify what package version that is. Because as we continue to grow our business, we will have different versions of packaging where we need to know what we're looking at, especially if it comes to a customer complaint, a recall, a FDA warning. We need to be able to research and understand what label version we're looking at. From CPSP 1.0 to the FDA is asking, well, why does it say this on the 1.0 version, but the 2.5 version says this? Well, that's a great question. We identified an error that was made and we corrected it as soon as possible. So this just is an internal system to help us identify. Yeah, other than that, if there are no questions, I'll move on to the next one very quickly. Let's do That's actually a copy. Material review. Oh, these might actually be. Okay.
Misha,
QA,
7 minutes. Can we do one more deck in 7 minutes
yeah,
and take a break?
I think we only have 11 and 8.
Okay. Oh, fantastic.
I'll blow through these very, very quickly. QA SOP 011, content authorization for external use, policies and procedures. The summary here is we got a little bit of hot water with regards to Oregon Tilth, who is our USDA organic certification body. When we posted some, say some mock products on our website that we were testing for customer feedback, those were actual products that we showed in our mock-ups or on the website that they were organic certified. Well, in fact, that we have not gone through the certification process and those products were not certified. So OPCO, or Oregon Tilth, identified those and said, hey, Herbal Goodness, what are you guys doing putting these products up there that are not certified? We said, oh, crud, our bad. It wasn't our intent to fool anybody. We were just trying to do market research and find out if these products would be good sellers. Sorry, these products are not in commerce. We haven't produced them. We'll take it down. So in summary here, we have to be very, very careful with the content that we release, social media, our website, because the FDA actually, I guess, has very powerful software that will go through our website and identify potential violations of the regulations. How they do that, I don't know. I could probably answer that better, but we have to have some sort of scrutiny before we can release things that are accessible by the public. Now, internally, we can talk about and do whatever. Hey, this is gonna be a certified organic product. No big deal. But as soon as it is accessible by the public, that's when it can get us into a little hot water. So we have a system for getting authorization to release content into public access. So, Unoma, do you have anything on that? Since I know that you're fully aware of the OTCO awesomeness.
No, I think you explained it pretty good, Misha. Just, yes. Being sure that we have certification. Yeah, that claims we're making are true and can be backed up before we put anything out for commerce. So I think we already talked about this with marketing, with so whenever we're doing, we're also still trying to put out what our test product process will be so that it doesn't look like we are trying to be deceptive. So I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. I'm just going to encourage everybody to go through this training deck. Of course, it will help you answering your quizzes or your quiz, because we didn't cover this at all. Essentially, it's just we use a form now, request for use distribution of materials form. If you want to post a mock-up onto our website, can we do that? I'll take a look at it and say, yeah, absolutely. Or no, we can't do that because of this. So it just gives us a little bit more scrutiny and one or two levels more of protecting ourselves. And then lastly, QA, QC policies, or QA, QC, that's referred to in a lot of our documents going forward as a quality unit. This is pretty in-depth, but really what it's, the purpose of this SOP is to define what our quality units responsibilities are and how we go about doing those. Right now, officially my title is Director of Operations, but since I have a lot of experience in quality, that's also another hat that I just want to reiterate. It is all of our responsibilities. No matter what your title is, no matter how long you've been with Herbal Goodness, it is all of our responsibility to uphold our quality. Just see if there's any. Okay, somebody other than Unoma, tell me what the FDA regulations for dietary supplements, where we can find it, what document are those regulations? Where can that be found?
'21 CFR 111.
Thank you, Jerry. You're correct. How about for food and beverages, for our tea boxes? What would that one be?
21 CFR 117.
That is correct. Good job, Jerry. Responsibilities. There's a lot of responsibilities. Everyone who's employed by Herbal Goodness is responsible for quality. Really and truly, we all have to prioritize it. Not only for safety, you have to. I'm not going to tell you that you have to do this, but the way that I view it is, I have 3 children. I have a lot of people that I care about and I love. And I would absolutely hate if another company out there was making bad product or making products that they did not follow good manufacturing practices. And it could make one of the people that I care about sick or, God forbid, die as a result. So we all have to prioritize our quality from a safety standpoint and also from a branding standpoint. If we, consumers are becoming a lot more savvy and a lot more educated about dietary supplements and nutrition and nutrients and how they affect our bodies. They're also becoming more aware of quality. So as a brand, we want to be associated with being a high quality brand. So how do we do that? Well, guess what? Everybody is responsible for quality here. I'm over by 2 minutes. We'll look through and see if there's anything. Kappa, you'll see this in quizzes a couple times. Kappa is corrective action and preventative action. If we see a from one of our products in manufacturing, or we have customer complaints, we have to investigate. Okay, we've determined that the mango leaf tea was actually filled with garlic, not mango. Okay, our corrective action would be going forward. Davidson's Organics has to have 3 levels of materials signed off before they can put it onto the production line. Preventative action, that would be the corrective action. Preventative action would also, that in this case, since it's only like 1 ingredient, no longer will you be able to have a single sign off for materials. That's an ad hoc, very top of my mind example, but Kappa is when there's something wrong, how do we correct it and how do we prevent it? Quality, yeah, we have the authority to reject and approve just about anything. Labels, seals, raw materials, finished products, if it's in our best interest. It's been contaminated, adulterated, or doesn't meet our quality specifications. All right. Also, you'll see this GMP. That stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. Sometimes you'll see the letter C in front of it. Same thing in most cases. All that stands for is Current Good Manufacturing Practices. That's what the FDA looks for. They say, hey, well, the customers will say, are you guys use CGMP certified manufacturers? Yes, we do. Exclusively. Approve or reject any treatment. Okay, in process. This is a lot of this relates to the manufacturing of the product. So just go through this deck. It's good. There's a lot of procedures. As you can see, we're up to 47. There's 48 things or 47 things that the quality unit is responsible for. And those can go into much more detail, but this will just help give you an understanding of what our quality unit does and what the QA/QC department at our contract manufacturers and suppliers do on a daily basis. So I hate that I had to blow through that one very, very quickly, but a lot of this will have to be kind of self-review. But again, just reiterate, I'm always here to answer any questions. You guys are confused about something or something in the training deck or the quiz doesn't make sense to you, absolutely call me, email me, whatever. Be more than happy and excited to help. So thank you all for your time. I really do appreciate it. I will send out the link to the quizzes very soon. And did you decide on a deadline when they should all be completed?
Yes, we're trying to get these in. So we're trying to get these into the FDA by Wednesday. So sorry to put you all under a little bit of time crunch. But again, just 10 quizzes, 10 questions each. Each one should take, a couple of minutes. Should be very intuitive, but please, if you get hung up on anything, ask, let us know. We'll help. Our goal is to show the FDA that we did indeed review all this and train our team on it. So we would appreciate if you would take quick action on this. So Wednesday, end of business on Wednesday would be our deadline to see if you guys can get this. So if Misha can send that off, we would appreciate your quick action on this. And I just wanted to, clap out to Misha, who has done such a phenomenal job putting all these things together and then training all of us. So Misha, phenomenal work. I was just in disbelief that you would do this in 2 hours, but here you are.
Thank you. I also want to send a shout out to Somtu. I guess she's not on anymore. Okay. Is she?
Yes, Somto, you need to say something. He's just really quietly in the background.
Yeah. Somtu did a lot of the training decks. She was very, very helpful. So she helped out tremendously. I'm sorry that we had to blow through it and we're on a time crunch to respond back to the FDA. But I'm just going to throw this out there. If everybody wants to group up on say Wednesday mid or